Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are looking at a set of sources you sent us that are, well, they're pretty explosive.
I have to say so.
If you've ever struggled with special relativity, time dilation, length contraction, and felt that something was just physically off, even if the math worked, you're about to see a potential reason why.
Yeah, these sources are making a huge claim. They're arguing that these effects aren't real properties of space-time at all. They're optical artifacts.
Optical artifacts. So basically illusions caused by what? A mistake in the math?
A mistake in the modeling. Specifically, a failure to account for the simple three-dimensional geometry of light's travel path. And our mission today is to, deconstruct that argument.
We're going to dive into their reimagining of Einstein's light clock experiment and try to pinpoint that moment where, according to them, mathematical description and physical reality went their separate ways.
It forces us to ask a really fundamental question. What if the universe is rigid and all the distortion is just in our equations? To get our heads around that, we have to start where they do, with a thought experiment.
Okay, let's set the scene. It's the classic high-speed train moving at, near light speed along the x-axis.
Right, and inside you've got the light clock. A pulse of light bouncing between a mirror on the floor and one on the ceiling. Standard stuff.
But here's the twist the sources add. The observer, who they call the camera eye, this observer isn't on the platform.
No. They're positioned far away from the track. The train is moving on the plane y equals +10. The camera eye is fixed at y equals -10.
So there's a constant vertical separation of 20 units between the event and the observer.
Exactly. And that right there is the entire game. That delta E of 20 guarantees that any light ray traveling from the train to the observer must travel a diagonal path.
Okay, so that sets up the geometry.
Yeah.
Now, the sources make a huge deal about splitting time into two different concepts.
This is the philosophical core of it all. First, you have what they call fact existence. Let's call it time TA.
TA, that's the moment the thing actually happens, right?
Precisely. The light pulse leaves the floor of the train at the exact instant the entire perfectly vertical train is passing the accelerometer mark. That's the physical reality.
Okay, makes sense. And the second moment?
That's the observation moment, or TM. This is when the light, after traveling through all that 3D space, finally reaches the camera eye.
And because light has a finite speed, TM is always later than TA.
Always. And the sources argue that physicists have, for a century, collapsed those two moments. They've confused the news of the event with the event itself.
But hold on. Surely physicists know about the speed of light. Why would they care what some delayed optical illusion at TM looks like? Aren't they trying to calculate the physical coordinates at TA?
You would think so, but that's the trap. What happens when that observer, the camera eye, takes a snapshot at TM?
They get a picture of the train.
They get a picture, yes. All the light rays arrive at their lens simultaneously, so they see a single continuous image, but it's a distorted image.
How so?
The light from the floor of the train, which is a bit closer to the observer, shows the floor's most recent position. Its status at TA, right at XEO.
Okay.
But the light from the ceiling, which is on the far side of the moving train, it had a longer 3D path to travel to reach the camera at that exact same instant, TM.
So it must have left earlier.
It had to have left earlier, back when the train was in a past position at some x less than 0.
So what does the final image look like?
It looks like a single slanted train. The bottom is at x0, and the top is leaning backward into the past. This, the sources say, is the first illusion.
Wow. So the argument is that theorists built their models based on this slanted illusory image from TM.
And then mistook that illusion for the physical reality of the object. They're confusing the photograph with the person.
Okay, so that explains the illusion. But what's the geometric mechanism? Why exactly does the ceiling's light have a longer path?
It all comes down to that 3D diagonal travel. Remember, the train is moving forward and there's that big vertical separation. For the light from the floor and the ceiling to arrive at the same time, they'd need to travel paths of the same length.
But they can't.
They can't. Because the ceiling is moving forward as it emits its light has to cover more ground, a longer three-dimensional distance, to reach the observer's fixed position.
So it has to start its journey earlier just to arrive at the same time as the light from the floor.
Precisely. The information gets staggered, and this forces the big philosophical shift that the sources are demanding. We have to abandon the old way of thinking.
Which is?
The idea that observation equals reality.
And replace it with?
Observation equals archaeology. You're not seeing the present. You are receiving a collection of past information.
A mosaic of different
No,
times.
mosaic of different times, exactly. The parts of the train closer to you are the newer past, and the parts farther away are the older past, all packaged into one seamless but false image.
The sources use that great metaphor to really hammer this home. The North Star.
It's the perfect analogy, isn't it? We look up, we see the North Star in what we call our present sky, but we all know we're seeing light from centuries ago. We are literally looking at the past.
And the argument is that looking at the high-speed train is the exact same thing, just on a scale of nanoseconds instead of centuries.
Yes. The physical event, the vertical train at X row at time TA, that's the North Star. It's the fixed fact. Our observation of it, that slanted image, is just our system rotating relative to that fixed reality.
So the time delay isn't some mystical stretching of time. It's just a direct result of the spatial layout and the speed of light.
It's pure geometry. And once you see that, we can move from the visual illusion, what they call line number 1, to the mathematical error that follows, line number 2.
Okay, and this is where the 3 spatial layers comes to play.
Right. We have to be really precise about where things are happening. The sources break space into 3 distinct planes.
So layer 1 is the real existence plane at y plus 10. That's where the train actually is.
Correct. Layer 2 is the observation plane. Down at Y10, that's where the camera eye is.
Separated by that crucial 20 units. And then there's layer 3, the insidious one.
The mathematical screen at Y0. This is the abstract plane, the 2D piece of paper, where theorists like Einstein traditionally draw their diagrams and do their calculations.
And the error happens when moving from the real world of layers 1 and 2 to the paper world of layer 3.
The error is called orthogonal projection. To simplify the math, to get rid of that pesky diagonal light path, physicists effectively just flatten the whole 3D event straight down onto the YO plane.
Like squashing a 3D model into a 2D drawing. But why? I mean, was it just for convenience?
It was, a habit of geometric thinking. In the textbook light clock experiment, the observer is usually right next to the train, so the vertical separation is 0. They just kept that assumption even when it didn't apply.
So by projecting it onto that flat y-linear plane, what do you actually lose?
You destroy the physical quantities. That's the exact phrase they use. You erase the delta, the vertical separation, and by doing that, you deliberately ignore the real, diagonal, three-dimensional path the light had to travel.
It's like you're trying to figure out the path of a ball on a curved surface, but your model assumes the surface is flat.
That's a great way to put it.
So when the ball starts doing weird things, instead of fixing your flat model, you invent a new force called surface curvature distortion to explain it.
Exactly. You've just invented space-time distortion. What got thrown away was the continuous process of near action. The simple physical fact that every light ray travels a specific 3D distance.
And once you throw that physical reality away, you are forced to invent a mathematical fix to make the numbers work again.
And that mathematical fix, the sources claim, is the Lorentz transformation. It's not a law of physics. It's an algebraic patch for a geometric blunder.
Let's use that corporate analogy they give, because it really nails the separation between these worlds.
Okay, so you have the mathematician's design drawing space. That's layer 3. This is the manufacturing division. They make pristine, abstract, 2D blueprints.
And then you have the camera eye's self-existence world. That's layers 1 and 2.
Yeah.
This is the sales division, dealing with the messy real-world product that actually gets delivered.
Right. And the critique is that the manufacturing division made their blueprints without talking to sales. They ignored the real-world delivery route, that diagonal light path.
So when the observer calls up and says, hey, the train you delivered is slanted and its clock is slow, manufacturing panics.
They panic, and instead of admitting their blueprints were wrong, they invent a new department called space-time distortion to explain why the product looks weird on arrival.
It's brilliant. So let's synthesize this. What is the slanted train model really trying to tell us, philosophically?
That the core effects of special relativity are not features of the universe. They are the mathematical consequences of starting with a flawed geometric model.
Which brings us to their summary, the 2 lies of space-time.
The 2 lies that built the whole theory.
Okay, let's go over lie number 1 again, the temporal one.
Lie 1, the temporal lie, is the observational error. It's mistaking simultaneous observation at TM for simultaneous existence at TA. You're building your physics on the delayed photo, not the real event.
And the second lie, the spatial mathematical one.
Lie 2, the spatial lie. You take that already flawed slanted image from lie 1, and then you commit the cardinal sin. You perform an orthogonal projection. You squash it onto a 2D plane, erasing its 3D history.
Which forces you to invent a mathematical fudge factor.
A fudge factor that you then call the Lorentz transformation, and you mistake it for a fundamental property of the universe. You start saying that space-time itself is being distorted.
If that's true, my gosh. I mean, special relativity is just describing the math needed to fix a broken 2D diagram, not the physics of a 3D universe.
That's the argument, and this allows for their ultimate goal, the recovery of absolute space.
So getting rid of that stretching rubber sheet analogy of space.
Completely. They argue space is not some active, distorting field. It's a rigid, transparent container. It's defined by one thing: placement structure. The simple, unchanging geometry of where the object is, where the observer is, and the path between them.
And you just correctly describe the 3D path of light inside that rigid container.
The entire idea of space-time distortion, of time slowing down and space contracting, it all just becomes unnecessary. The effects are explained by geometry and information delay. Period.
It's just incredible to think that so much of modern physics could hinge on the geometric assumptions made right at the start of a calculation. These sources really do provide a blueprint for how simple 3D geometry could, potentially, unravel one of the most famous theories in science.
That's a powerful idea, because it suggests you can get all the same experimental results that seem to validate relativity, but you can derive them differently. You can describe the exact same observed phenomena without ever using the Lorentz transformation as a fundamental law.
So if the distortion of space-time is just, as they say, the distortion of the process of flattening observation onto a plane, it just makes you wonder, what else in physics might be solvable, or at least radically simplified, if we just stopped and rewired our core spatial concepts and acknowledged the simple 3D reality of how information travels?
That's the question they leave us with, a profound one to think about until our next deep dive.